Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the...
My ex and I were in the woods when I was living in England, I'm American, about 15 years ago. It was right next to a pond called the Silent Pool in Surrey. I don't know how well known it is. It was a very cold night in January, so it wasn't lightning bugs. We were the only ones there, in thick woods. To my left, about 7 blue lights were hovering, about an inch in diameter. They started moving very slowly. There was enough moonlight to see that there wasn't anyone standing there. We froze. There was no noise. The light was obviously independent/not attached, or a laser. They moved closer. When they got to about 4 feet away, my ex absolutely panicked. He bolted and left me there. I ran towards the direction of the car and eventually made it. I don't believe in fairies or demons. I've always held the notion that UFOs or ghosts may exist. I just don't know what it was. I didn't feel as though it was benevolent or non-benevolent. It definitely felt otherworldly. Just looking for people with similar experiences. I'm not sure what happened. Yesterday, my boyfriend and I were having an argument over the phone. It was getting pretty heated and I was getting madder and madder. I was sitting in my recliner and just as I was about to lose it on him, I heard a large popping sound behind me. I thought it was a gunshot through my window. I turned around and a medium-sized vase that held combs on my desk had literally exploded. I was so confused. I looked to see if something had fallen on it from the side, from above, anywhere. There was nothing. Nothing around it, nothing out of place. It looked as if it had fallen over facing my chair, but there was no reason for it to have fallen. It's a decent sized vase and only had 2 or 3 pocket-sized combs in it. I'm actually terrified my anger caused it to break. I was so angry and the pop sound came at the height of it. My mom and daughter actually yelled to ask if I was okay because they heard it from 2 separate parts of the house. I'm not a huge believer in the paranormal, but I absolutely cannot find a rational reason for what happened. What do you all think? Hello Reddit users, my apartment is haunted. I don't know if it's a ghost or demon, but really weird things are happening. I feel watched almost all the time and I see people from the corner of my eye or in reflections, and when I look at it, it's gone. In October I had some demon scratches on my arm and there were a couple bad ghosts who did some creepy things. I went to a medium. She said I should say sorry to the ghosts because they probably came through a Ouija board to me. Stupid idea. I told them I am sorry and that they aren't welcome here and should leave. Then it stopped after a couple days and I felt better. But for about 1 or 2 weeks I think they are back. It feels like it and I see it from the corner of my eye. It looks like some hot air is floating through the door or the air, and when you see the shadow moving fast to another point, suddenly where it's going the thing started to move. For example, I had Christmas decoration over my couch and I saw the shadow moving to it, and then the bells started swinging like somebody wanted to show me he is here. And it was 3 times in a row to different bells. All windows were closed and the blinds were down. Yesterday about 3:40 a.m. I wanted to go to bed. My door was open and my room is right next to the room which was haunted the most. I had a girl whisper something really loud. I heard it 100% clear and it was the same voice I heard a couple months ago. I don't know if they want to do bad things or if they need help or anything. I started talking to them when I first noticed them because I thought they need help, but they trolled me and I think they got the energy of me and more bad things happened. There was definitely a demon who chased me even when I was out of my apartment. I was with a friend at the train station when he heard the girl saying PSSSST when nobody was there. Then the lights flickered behind me and then it sounded like somebody is making some noise with their fingernails on metal in a rhythm. We both heard it clear. Much more happened. I can't tell you all of it because I would write for days. I don't know how to get rid of them in a friendly way. Can somebody please help me? Does anybody maybe know what they want? Sometimes random things gets thrown down but nothing what breaks or anything. I am sorry for grammatical issues. I live in Germany. I would be very happy if someone can help me. Best regards. I made this account 6 months ago because I needed to get the story off my chest. This experience was starting to affect my relationship and I desperately needed to tell someone and move on. I decided not to go through with posting about it because I didn't want to seem cringe or have a bunch of people tell me that I was lying. Fast forward to today and I'm finally feeling brave enough to share. Context: I'm female, I was 22 at the time and in my last year of engineering school, still living in my parents' house. Since then I've moved out and got a job in another city. Back in April 2022 I was laying in bed relaxing and had drifted off to sleep around 1 a.m. I'm a night owl and typically stay up well into the night. Sometime after I fell asleep I was awakened to someone grabbing me from behind in an awkward hugging motion. Like a bear hug but more awkward and grabby. I slept on my side and would usually face the wall, so I needed to turn around to see who was touching me. My mom usually gets up for work super early, so I assumed it was her coming into my room to hug and say bye for the day. I was horribly wrong. When I started to turn around, my vision was still blurry and I couldn't see anyone standing directly next to my bed. I was confused because I had just felt someone touching me. Before I had even finished fully turning to see, my eyes had wandered to the corner of my room near my desk, and my body froze immediately. There was this being floating directly above my desk. I'm not even sure if being is the right word to use, but it looked humanoid. This being was slightly shorter than me, I'm 5'3", had a larger than normal head, tiny slit mouth, their skin was this blackish, star-speckled color. I don't even know how to describe it, but they almost looked eerie, like if I poked them my finger would go right through. I felt like I was looking into some sort of cosmic gas. It was really fucking strange, but the most prominent feature I noticed were their gigantic, deep black eyes. The eyes somehow managed to be a deeper black than their skin. They were so huge and just, very striking to see. When I saw them hovering over my desk, I made eye contact and my whole body froze. My immediate instinct was to get up and run away, but it was like I couldn't move my arms and legs no matter how much I thought I needed to. I was frozen still. A strange detail I remembered the other day was that when I made eye contact, all the ambient noise in the room was gone. It was completely silent, and we were just staring deeply into each other's eyes. It was like time completely froze in that moment. While I was staring into their eyes, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt the most primal fear I could have ever felt. I felt like I had suddenly reverted into a caveman or something. I felt this horrible dread, a horrible eldritch terror. I kept thinking that I needed to get up and run, I needed to get away, but I couldn't fucking move. And then I heard this message in my head. I can't exactly describe how I heard it. It wasn't as if someone said it to me, but as if it was directly planted into my own thoughts. It said, "Don't be afraid," and I thought to myself, what in the biblically accurate angel fuck is going on? I was confused because I heard this message but the being itself did not speak. Like their mouth didn't move. In fact, I don't remember any sort of facial expression ever being conveyed other than the creepy intense stare. I felt a sort of calmness wash over me and I blacked out a few moments after that. The next thing I remember is being seated at my desk. The being was gone but I could still hear these messages in my head. I'm assuming they realized how scared I was and decided to hide themselves to avoid me shitting myself again. I can't exactly remember the entire conversation word for word, or how it even happened, but I remember the gist of it. Basically, I was shown these images of real-life war, maybe the war in Ukraine? And images of war in things like cartoons and media, and I guess it wanted to know my opinions about both and the way the images made me feel. I can't remember my response, but I remember feeling that they were mildly satisfied with it. For a moment I felt like there might have been a third presence in the conversation, like someone else was observing, but I'm not completely sure. At some point during the encounter, I felt awkward and I grabbed my phone to look at Reddit, just looking for something to calm myself down. Nobody was in the room, but still I felt like I was being watched intensely. It's worth noting that I have very severe social anxiety, and I was scared as fuck, but I didn't feel like I was in danger anymore. Anyway, I ended up finding some stupid meme and laughing at it, and I got a feeling like the being was questioning my behavior, like they seemed intrigued by the way I was acting. I remember holding my phone up in the air like look. Not knowing where they were but trying to show them anyway. There was a moment of silence, and then next thing I know I was back in bed again like nothing ever happened, in the blink of an eye. My phone was lying next to me on the bed, and the screen was off. I grabbed it to look at the time. It was like 3 or 4 a.m. I checked my tabs to make sure I wasn't fucking insane, and sure enough Reddit was still open. I don't think they liked my meme. After this happened, I felt like I had been severely traumatized. I slept with the light on for several months after this happened. I talked about it constantly, so much so that I started to overwhelm my girlfriend with my behavior. I was paranoid all the time. I couldn't fall asleep without checking that same corner over and over again. I spent months researching other people who've had similar encounters, just trying to convince myself that I'm not crazy. I still do feel paranoid a lot of the time, and sometimes I convince myself that it wasn't real and I was just dreaming, sleep paralysis blah blah, but my body knows the truth. I still feel that horrible dread feeling when I think about what happened, especially when I think of looking into their eyes. My hands will shake and I start to sweat, my body goes numb. It's the only thing that keeps me 100% sure that it wasn't just a dream. I still find myself checking corners when I'm in bed at night, but it's gotten a lot easier to manage now that some time has passed. This experience has completely changed the way I see reality and consciousness, and definitely made me ask myself some tough questions about our existence on this planet. Thanks for reading. Edit. A lot of people have asked me if I remember what meme I showed them. Unfortunately, I don't. I used the Apollo app and the app had already refreshed when I went to check my phone. I will however try to look for it and will post an update if I find it. Thanks again. Back in 1984 I was staying overnight at a friend's shared flat in South London. This was on the ground floor of a large converted Victorian house. There was a narrow path at the side of the house which led to a small paved backyard which the room I was sleeping in faced onto. The place was surrounded by similar houses in a very built-up area, not at all rural, not far from a busy main route into central London. I was woken up very abruptly around 2 a.m. by the most terrifying noises coming from the side and back of the house. I struggle to accurately describe them as they were so weird, but here goes. High-pitched shrieking alternating with guttural growling accompanied by, what sounded like, 2 hooves, note, not 4, clattering around. It sounded like an animal in a frenzied state which had become trapped and was frantically running back and forth trying to escape. It was maybe about the size of a small pony, but ponies do not growl to my knowledge. This probably went on for about 5 minutes, although it felt like a lot longer. It was utterly terrifying. I was sat up in bed and my heart was beating like crazy. I couldn't bring myself to go to the window and draw the curtain to take a peek out, as the picture my brain had conjured up was of some kind of demon, which I didn't much fancy coming face to face with. After the adrenaline had subsided I eventually fell back to sleep and in the morning told my friend and her flatmates about it. They had heard absolutely nothing and I suspect were thinking I'd just had a bad dream. It definitely wasn't a dream. There were no animals larger than a dog in the surrounding area, which were not running loose anyway, so I have absolutely no idea what the hell it could have been. This incident made a lasting impression on me and still puzzles me to this day. Creepy. Okay, so I live in Montana, so if you are from my neck of the woods you will know the place I'm talking about. Me and my family lived in a small town called Sims MT, yes, that is what the town was called, and for a while we owned and lived at the restaurant/bar The Fireside. It was old and was one of the first buildings that was built in the town. The front of the place was the bar and restaurant, the back was the original old house that was made first where we lived. Nothing ever happened back there. The setup was simple. We had the bar at the very front with tables all around the floor for anyone who didn't want to sit at the bar itself. The kitchen was behind the bar, and to the left of the bar when you walk in was a counter and a door that lead to the kitchen, and more parallel to the kitchen was the dining room. It was a bit more fancy looking with red carpet and cushioning on the chairs. It had lighting that was supposed to be romantic, I guess, but it was just creepy to me. We had 3 ghosts. Well, I say 3, but that might be the case with one of them. There was an old farmer looking man who sat at the bar all the time. He seemed rather friendly and I never felt afraid of him. He didn't really do much but show up at the end of the bar and sit. My grandma thought that in life he must have visited the bat a lot, and after his death he stuck around. In the kitchen we had an older woman who seemed much older than the man at the bar, and not by looking older I mean she seems to have been here when the place was first built. She looked like a settler and she was far more active than the man thought. I never saw her. I never felt scared in the kitchen. One time my grandma was cooking and suddenly next to her she saw the woman who pointed at the food and said, "That's wrong, dear," and vanished. The person who had the most interaction with the woman was a waitress we had hired. She would come into the kitchen, turn on the lights, go out for a moment, come back and the lights would be off, or she would turn on the burners on the oven shed, turn around and look back and the burners are off. The woman just seemed mischievous at most. Then there was the dining room, and that fucking thing, I hated going into the dining room, but everyone did. My mom wouldn't go in there by herself. It was not confined to one place like the others, it went wherever it wanted, but most of the time it was in the dining room in back left corner where it was pretty dark. It just sat in a chair and would look at you. Now you may be asking what did it look like, and all I can say is it looked like a human-shaped black hole, but it didn't stay like that all the time. My mother was in the kitchen once and out of the corner of her eye she saw the woman. Thinking nothing of it, she continued to just finish cleaning up when suddenly a plate was thrown full fucking force at her head. It scared the shit out of her. She knew right then and there that that was not the woman but that thing looking like her. And before you say demon, my grandma has had a demonic experience, and the thing in the fireside was not a demon. It felt different. She would tell me a demon feels hungry. This thing felt like the absence of anything. Even I felt that. Recently, years later, I'm 20 and my mom told me a story about that thing I didn't know. So there had been a part and there were some balloons, and my mom and dad are sitting in the main area, and suddenly one of the balloons began to move. It moved from the main area to the dining room, came back out and was let go. That was the only interaction my dad had with it, but he seemed to be ghost repellent, so I didn't know. That's all, no final scare or anything. I have some more recent experiences, so if you are interested let me know and tell me what you think.
Mosey on down to the Atomic Shaman Trading Post. We have t-shirts, decals, refrigerator magnets and other swag for sale. What better way to show your support for the show? Our merch can only be found on t.pub/link/Atomic Shaman Trading Post. Like, share and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to ring the notification bell. You can follow us on Twitter at Motel and RV Park. Catch the live streams on Rumble. Listen to text-to-speech stories on Atomic Shaman TTS on YouTube.